Well, what's up YouTube, this is Mox Lotus, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a commander deck tech for green-white tokens. So for the deck that I use, my commander is Trostani, and this deck, it's designed to work well around her, but if you've got a commander like Rust or Redeemed, or hell, even Amara Tandris, then I'm still going to be showing you guys some pretty cool cards that you should consider putting in your deck if you don't have them already. And yeah, so Trostani is a 2/5 for 4. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. This is a pretty cool ability. It'll mean that you should be able to live for a fairly long time. But we're focusing on second ability, which for 3 and tap, you can populate. Populate is this really cool mechanic from Return to Ravnica. And basically, you can put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of a creature token you control. And so with this deck, we're going to be making some pretty big tokens, as you guys are about to see. And the main goal is to just make a massive army of these tokens and just have massive swings at your opponents. And so keep in mind that this is a deck tech, not a deck profile, so I'm not going to be showing you the full deck. And also, most of these cards can be bought if you're on a budget. So again, it's a pretty easy to make deck. And yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. So the first card we have that will make us some tokens is Voice of Resurgence. And now I know I said that this is a pretty budget friendly deck, and it is. This is probably the most expensive card in the deck. Prices are subject to change, but I don't see any of them really going up. The good news is, at the time of making this video, Khans of Tarkir is only 1 or 2 months away, and so basically when that comes out, Return to Ravnica block will rotate out as standard, and I can see Voice of Resurgence going down to probably $10, I think is pretty realistic. And yeah, this is a really good card. If you've got a pretty developed board already, then you should be making some pretty big elemental tokens. Speaking of big elemental tokens, we have Grove of the Guardian. This is a pretty good land. It'll give you some colorless mana, but for 5 and tap, and tapping 2 untapped creatures you control, you can sack it and put an 8/8 onto the battlefield. And it's also got Vigilance, which is helpful. And so basically, you can obviously keep populating that with Trostani, and there are a few other cards that we'll get to in a moment that will again help you bring these guys out fairly quickly. Next up, for the 1 Planeswalker in this deck, we have a Ajani, Caller of the Pride. I'm thinking of putting in a Garruk, Caller of the Beasts, but we'll see about that. Basically, its first 2 abilities are, I guess, helpful, but we're really focusing on its ultimate, and it will take a bit of work to get there, but I mean, you'll have enough creatures to be able to protect it fairly easily. And yeah, you're going to be making a ton of 2/2 white cat creature tokens. Make sure you don't have a card called Parallel Lives or Doubling Season or Primal Vigor on the battlefield, or else you won't be able to fit them all on the table. And yeah, so also you'll have a pretty big life total already from Trostani, and of course when you make all these cat tokens it'll get even bigger. Next up we have Advent of the Worm. I know this is in Japanese, but what it does is it puts a 5/5 with trample onto the battlefield, and it's only 4 mana, so it's very good. We have Scion of the Vitu-Ghazi. The main reason I have this is because it helps you get 1/1 white birds onto the battlefield. And I mean, they're only 1/1s, but they have flying, and that can help you against things like Skithrix. And yeah, so just a bit of a line of defense. Another thing that will make you some worm tokens is Armada Worm. This will make you 2, or actually no, it makes you 1, and you also get a 5/5, so again, it's pretty handy, and it's 6 mana, so it's pretty good value. We've got Trostani's Summoner. This card is a bit situational because you need a token doubling card on the field for it to really be good value. But basically, when it enters the battlefield, you get a 2/2 with Vigilance, a 3/3, and a 4/4 with Trample. So again, you'll be making quite a lot of tokens with it. Next up, we have Rampaging Baloths. This is a 6/6 for 6 with Trample, and it's got landfall. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a 4/4 green beast token onto the battlefield. And so there's no Wooded Foothills in this deck, but if you have one, then you'll get 2, which is pretty good. We've also got Slime Molding. There is a bit of ramp in the deck, so you can be making, it's basically there just to get out your big creatures as quickly as possible. And of course it'll also help you get your Slime Molding up to a 10/10, which you can easily keep populating. Call of the Conclave is a good early game card, as you just get a 3/3 for 2. Avenger of Zendikar is a 5/5 for 7, and you can put when it enters the battlefield, you can put a 0/1 green plant creature token on the battlefield for each land you control. And so, as I said, there's a bit of ramp in the deck, so you should have quite a few lands by that stage. And I mean, you're at least going to be getting 7. And then it has landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each plant creature you control. So again, this card, depending on how many lands you have, your board can get out of control, and you will need to buy quite a lot of tokens. And lastly, we have Hero of Bladehold. This is a 3/4/4 with Battle Cry. So when it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. This is a great finisher, especially when you've got heaps of tokens, as you'll also put 2 1/1 white soldiers on the battlefield tapped and attacking, but that's not really the point, because it'll power up all of your other creatures. And yeah, so next up, let's talk about cards that'll, I guess, help you bring out plenty of tokens. So we're going to be making a lot of tokens, as you can see, but we're going to get even more value off these tokens with Parallel Lives. This card is like doubling Season and Primal Vigor, but I guess it's a bit cheaper and a bit easier to get. And so basically, if you're going to put a token on the battlefield, you get another one. And so this works well with cards like Slime Molding, if you can make a pretty big token, or Avenger of Zendikar. You can make at the least 14 0/1s with this, and then when a land enters the battlefield, they all get +1/+1 counters, so that's 14 damage right there, and with a fetch land, it's 28. We've also got a Ajani. If you can get its ultimate to go off, you can get like too many tokens, you won't be able to fit them all on the table. Another cool card is Growing Ranks. This isn't quite as good as Parallel Lives, but it's still going to populate at the beginning of your upkeep, and so it's a good way to be able to consistently populate, even if you don't have cards like Trostani on the field. Some other good populate engines are Druid's Deliverance. This will protect you for a turn, and also lets you populate. The first effect is, like, it's good, but you don't really need it. Populating for 2 mana is pretty good. We've also got Rootborn Defenses. This gives all your creatures indestructible, and you can also populate, so it's great for when you're going in for that final swing. So once you've got your huge field of creatures, it's time to give them power-ups. The first card to do this is Borrow of Nylia. This will give your attacking creatures Death Touch. It's also got some other handy abilities, but basically this will make your creatures incredibly scary. Another thing that will make your creatures scary is Collective Blessing. This is an enchantment for 6 that gives all your creatures +3/+3. So even those 1/1 soldiers are going to become a big threat for your opponent. We've also got Amara Tandris. This is seen as the weakest Maze Runner in Dragon's Maze, but when you've got plenty of tokens on the field, it really doesn't matter. This will give all your creature tokens, like, not indestructible, but it prevents all damage that they would take. And lastly, we have Akroma's Memorial. This is a really cool artifact. It's going to give all your creatures flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, and protection from black and red. So that card, it's just insane. It costs a bit, but you should be able to get it out a bit more quickly than turn 7 with the ramp in this deck. Speaking of ramp, we have cards like Explore in here. This lets play an extra land and draw a card. Font of Fertility. This is kind of like a not as good ramp in growth, but if you've got nothing else to play on turn 1, then it's pretty handy. We've also got Restore. This will let you take some helpful lands from your opponents, like say they've got something like, I don't know, a Nykthos, then you can easily get that. And we've also got Cultivate. This lets you get 2 lands and put them onto the battlefield, and 1 in your hand, so you'll definitely have some play for next turn in terms of the land, just in case you're a bit mana screwed. And also, we've got another card. This isn't technically ramp, but it is Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. And I've got this card in here because a lot of our cards have like 2 green or white in their mana cost, kind of. And what I mean by that is you've got things like Sign of the Vitu-Ghazi, Ajani, Bowl of Nylia, Collective Blessing, Growing Ranks, and you can see up the top, they've all got like, I mean, this one has 2 green up there, and so you will be getting quite a lot of mana if you have a few of these cards on the field, and of course that lets you play bigger cards like your Slime Molding. And yeah, so So lastly, for our removal, and I guess just cards to help deal with threats, firstly we have Oppressive Race. This card, a lot of people say it's kind of like a bad pacifism, but I actually like it. Basically, it only costs 1 mana, which is 1 cheaper than pacifism, and it also forces your opponent to like waste some of their mana to be able to do anything with the card. So if they've got like a commander that's a bit of a threat or just a creature, then this card can really throw a spanner in their works. You can do this on your opponent's Trostani if anyone else is playing it, and then basically that means that they're going to have to spend 6 mana each turn to populate. And yeah, so we've also got Pacifism, which is just kind of like if you just need to straight up stop the creature. And we've also got Condemn. You can do this on your opponent's commander and like force them to waste a tutor on it or something if it's a key piece of their strategy. The good news is that Trostani isn't really a huge part of the deck's strategy. Like, if someone exiles it or something, you can live without it, and yeah, so it's not too reliant on Trostani. So for an awesome combo with this deck, you're going to need a Parallel Lives on the field, and you're also going to need 7 lands. So you're going to tap these 7 lands, then you're going to play your Trostani Summoner, and then you pretty much just get your whole pile of tokens, just spread them all over the battlefield, and win the game. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Keep in mind that it was a deck tech, not a deck profile. And one thing I guess I should say is that this deck is fairly budget friendly. Like, I've probably spent around 150 Australian dollars building it so far. And so when you compare that to other Commander decks I've seen that cost like, I've seen one that was $4,000, then this is a fairly cheap deck to make, and it's pretty good, especially for its price, and I really like it. That's probably because it's green and white. The good news is, as I said, Voice of Resurgence is going to be going down in price, and most of the cards in here are about $5 and under. There are a few exceptions. Yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, bye guys.